So Nick Fuentes has successfully been able to bully himself onto prominent right-wing shows. And look, I think the fact of the matter is they're scared of him. They're scared of him. They're scared of his Groyper army. They've experienced backlash whenever they disagreed with him or came out against him. Tucker Carlson spoke to Candace Owens recently, and Tucker called him a weird little gay kid in his basement or something like that. And then you had Fuentes go on this rant against Tucker, accusing him of being in the CIA and all this stuff. And, that kind of blew up online. And I think Tucker felt like, damn, he got the better of me in that back and forth. And he was getting a lot of shit online. And so in the same way that Candace spoke to him, now Tucker brought him on. And so they're really mainstreaming this open white nationalist who admires Hitler. That's what they're doing. And honestly, I think it's totally bitch-made, cuck shit, because they're scared of him, and that's why they're bending the knee, that's why they're caving, that's why they're having him on. And so Tucker had him on his show here for a long conversation, over 2 hours, and I mean, it was pathetic. They basically played footsies the majority of the time. They touched tips. They were sucking and fucking, and the only times that they really disagreed was Tucker ever so gently being like, well, I don't know if it's a good idea to blame all Jews because Jews are all different and they're not all the same, and maybe anti-Semitism is not a good thing, and maybe that's not how you should address these topics. And Fuentes is basically like, no. And he's like, okay, let's move on. Just total bitch shit, and normalizes this guy. So let's remember, before we get into the hilarious clips that I'm about to show you, let's remember, this is who Nick Fuentes is. Let me give you some Nick Fuentes quotes. Hitler was really fucking cool. I admire Hitler. Now, did Tucker Carlson bring this up to Nick Fuentes? Hey, Nick, I have a quote of yours here. Hitler was really fucking cool. Do you stand by that? Quote, I admire Hitler. Do you stand by that? No, he didn't do that. Again, because he's a bitch. Tucker is a bitch. We also know that Fuentes is a Holocaust denier. There's this clip of him doing the whole, how can 6 million cookies be made in that many ovens and all, you know the whole spiel. He has told his audience in the past, and this is what makes him so nefarious now, is that he's told his audience, you have to hide your power level, and you have to do trickery and deceit, and you can't start the conversation politically by saying, I love Hitler, like Fuentes has done. He wants you to, infiltrate the institutions of society and hide your Groyper Nazi power level. And so now he's giving people that advice of we got to try to mainstream ourselves a little bit. He very famously said about Patrick Bet-David, well, Patrick has a problem with me saying the N-word, so I guess I'm going to have to start not saying the N-word anymore because we're trying to infiltrate in these spaces and sort of normalize our ideas. So this is very, this is sophisticated what he's doing. And it's not like he's different from the older clips of him saying stuff like, I admire Hitler and Hitler was really fucking cool. It's that now he's realized, wait, I have an opportunity here to mainstream myself more, so let me just, not put my worst foot forward is basically what he's thinking. Quote, this was, because now he's trying to normalize himself as, oh, look, I'm against the genocide in Gaza, and so you should take my voice seriously because I'm going after the Israeli government. Here's a quote from him. Quote, I don't care that much, he said. That's about the genocide. Quote, I'm ambivalent. He admits that he's doing this strategically. Why? Because it's just another way for him to blame the Jews more broadly. Right? More. Bravo. Good job. That was his reaction to the 288 people being sent to the concentration camp in El Salvador under Trump. Quote, women shouldn't have the right to vote. Boys and girls should get married as teens. Be against women's rights. Be against them getting educated. He goes on to say, ban birth control, ban contraceptives. Women should not be in the workforce. Ban them from voting. Ban pornography. Ban transgenderism and homosexuality and sodomy. They should be shamed and banned. He called for, quote, Catholic Taliban rule in America. Quote, we want to go back to the Middle Ages. Give the death penalty, he said, to Jews, atheists, and witches. Quote, all black people should be ashamed of crimes committed by others of their race. White people are every single bit justified in being racist. These are direct quotes. Quote, democracy is wrong. Quote, I fucking hate the poor. I love the rich. Quote, dating women is gay. Having sex with women is gay. And honestly, this reminds me, you see the New York Times wrote an article on this guy. By the way, kind of amazing, right? New York Times, have you written an article about me, a lefty with 2 million YouTube subscribers? Who gets, hundreds of thousands of views per video? Have you done that? No. Instead, you ran to the fucking Groyper, who is a Nazi, right? And you do a glowing profile on him. Meanwhile, that same New York Times, if you go back and look in the 1920s, they covered Hitler and basically said, oh, he's not actually an anti-Semite. He's just using the issue to become popular, but that's not really what's in his heart. They were naive. They were played in the same way that fucking Fuentes is playing them now. Not just playing the New York Times and establishment media, but also clearly playing right-wing media, which is fucking terrified of him. Terrified of him. So, that's his background. Now, let's have some fun. So, did Tucker bring up literally any of those quotes I gave you? Those direct fucking quotes. Not a single fucking one was brought up. He tepidly pushed back against the idea that all Jews are bad. Then Fuentes was like, disagree. And then they fucking kept moving on, right? Well, here we go. This is their conversation on porn. This should be good. Watch.
What is porn exactly? Like, describe how available is porn? What is it? I know what porn is, but like you said, it's a huge factor in the lives of young men and a bad factor. Why?
Well, this is another thing where it's reality distortion. That's kind of the theme. Just like psychedelics distort reality, just like a kind of internet society is a form of delusion, so is porn, in the sense that, you know, a lot of people maybe don't realize, and we talked about this a little bit, people are getting turned on to porn when they're like 10 years old. And when you are going through puberty, when you're developing your sexual faculties, how could you stay away from that? Every kid has a phone, every kid has an iPad, and every iPad and phone is, if you know what it is, loaded up with porn. And it's infinite and it's ubiquitous and you can get every kind of it you want, whenever you want, it's in your pocket. And so something that is almost never talked about is that this is a generation that's totally sexually dysfunctional, I think, because of pornography. And some people are able to cope with it. Some people don't have a problem. But I think a lot of people, and maybe even a small minority, have a serious problem with it.
Okay, but is that our problem? Is that healthy? Is that the problem of healthy adults who can handle themselves? That's like saying, yeah, like what, 10% maybe of alcoholics, maybe as many as 20% of alcohol drinkers, I should say, are alcoholics and have a problem. As a society, we've realized, well, we're not going to ban this for fucking everybody because 10% or 20% can't fucking handle themselves. Like, that's their issue, and I wish them luck, and they should be able to go to rehab, and it should be paid for with insurance, and like, you know, I think there should be a great support system there for people, but other people who don't have a problem should be able to have a drink of alcohol. By the same token, other people, the 80 to 90% of people that don't have a fucking problem, should be able to enjoy adult content, and instead, this is now scapegoated as like, this is the main problem, and this is what's ruining young men, and that's just fucking bullshit.
And the
How
problem,
does it make people sexually dysfunctional?
I think that it's impossible for a real woman to compete with the availability and the novelty of pornography.
That's just not true. That's just not true. Jacking off is a totally different experience from being with a woman in real life, right? Like, again, this, like, these creative arguments for the end goal of ban porn, which is his actual take.
A real woman, like, without getting graphic, she's only one person, and, you know, maybe she wants to do something sexual, maybe she doesn't. Porn is, you could have 100 different women in one sitting doing anything that whatever niche or idiosyncratic thing a person might be into, it's there. And so I think that novelty combined with that availability, it makes it so that, you know, when you think about courting a woman, juice isn't worth the squeeze. And so there's like also a problem of like erectile dysfunction, people that can't enjoy regular sex because it does not compare to the intensity, the novelty, and the availability of porn. It's hyper stimulation. And so I think that's sabotaging a lot of normal sexual relationships.
It seems like
I feel like this is such a self-report. To the extent that I grant any of this, it's like maybe in 10% of the population, at most in 20%. Why is it that, you know, I'm of the internet age, right? I as far as I can remember, I had a computer in my house. And same with, you know, Corin, for example, and none of us ever had a debilitating fucking porn addiction. Like, yes, it exists among some people, but to reshape society because there's a couple assholes who can't stop jacking off their dick until it chafes. Like, sorry, bro, that's a you problem, right? Again, like, adults should be able to enjoy adult things, but that's not, they genuinely don't believe that. He's an authoritarian, he's a fascist, and part and parcel with that is social controls, right? And one of the elements of social control is we have to take away things that we deem are degenerate and a vice. And so just like take all of the stuff that we've come to accept as a society and just fucking reverse that. And I'm sorry, that's not going to make society better. If anything, I think there's a case that would make society objectively worse, that it's way worse. Because there's a lot of guys out there who don't have the social skills or the ability to get with a woman, have a girlfriend, get laid, or whatever it is. And it's like, don't you want some outlet for that person so they're not some pent up fucking ticking time bomb that can commit fucking crimes and violence because there's no way for them to scratch that itch, that primal itch that everybody has?
It's making a lot of people gay, too.
Yeah, and trans.
You think that's true?
100%.
Oh my God, no. Did they actually say that?
Hyper-stimulation. And so I think that's sabotaging a lot of normal sexual relationships.
It seems like it's making a lot of people gay, too.
Yeah, and trans.
You think that's true?
100%.
This is such fucking horseshit. Oh my God, this is such horseshit. There's going to come a day where we look back on conversations like this and they're going to get mocked for the absurdities that they are. Because, bro, it's the same thing with gay people, right? Like, no, it turns out it really is true. There are some gay people that are just born that way. Gayness occurs in nature, too, among many different, animal groups as well. Like, yeah, some people are just born that way. There's some percentage. I don't know what the percentage is. 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever the fuck it is. That's gay. They're gay. And there's also some percentage that's trans. The fact that they are linking it to porn, again, that's a bit of a self-report, right? That's a bit of a self-report. It's like how, Alex Jones, fucking classic right-winger, anti-trans, he was caught, one of the tabs on his computer, he was caught watching trans porn, right? And so in their minds, they link, this is like, it's an identity thing, but they make it a sexual thing. They're saying, oh no, it has to come from sex stuff and from porn stuff. Or not. Or they're genuinely people who are born, who physically are one thing, but they effectively have the brain of the opposite. And they're convinced that effectively in their soul, they're the opposite. But it can't be that. That's the Occam's razor explanation. Nope, not good enough. It's got to be that what? You jacked off so much so often that you decided you were going to become the opposite sex? Just totally fucking made up. And how do you even get to the point where your mind goes down that track, bro? How does that even occur to you in any way, shape, or form that, like, yeah, I'll make this argument. Like, you're humiliating yourself by saying that.
Hyper-stimulation. And so I think that's sabotaging a lot of normal sexual relationships.
It seems like it's making a lot of people gay, too.
Yeah, and trans.
You think that's true?
100%.
What is that?
I think that the novelty is a huge part of that. I think that if you are somebody that uses pornography multiple times per day, which many people do.
Actually?
Oh, absolutely.
I've never heard of that, Tucker said as he fucking ends the interview and runs to the corner to beat off to some weird shit.
Jerking off.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And, if you're doing that multiple times a day, every day, for years, since you're a kid, well, eventually you get bored and you want to move on to something more extreme. And you're kind of, it operates, I think, similar to like a drug. You kind of have the same kind of resistance to it that you would to a drug or a tolerance for it. And you're always chasing that initial feeling the first time you used it or the first time you saw a certain thing. And I think eventually you just chase more taboo, more transgressive. And I think maybe some people are more prone to that than other people going and it's really...
Oh, you don't say. Yeah, that's the whole fucking ball game, bitch. I just fundamentally reject this. I'm 37 years old. My entire life, I've been into the same things. And in fact, most people, if you talk to them, and you get honest answers about what tickles their fancy, they will be into the same things. This idea of like perversion inflation, like again, maybe 10% of people, people who have a genuine and sincere sex addiction or problem, maybe, but 90 fucking percent of people or more, they're into what they're into and they're comfortable with themselves and what they're into, and that's it. So again, these are just such self-reports, if anything. This is not a widespread, no, this is like a you thing, bro. This is a you thing. The rest of us have, we're comfortable with our own sexuality and what we're into.
This is how Charlie Sheen got AIDS, actually.
Yeah.
Through just being jaded and looking for something more transgressive. That's just a fact.
No, that is not a fact. That is Charlie Sheen's cope around the fact that he got AIDS because he's bisexual. He claims... I just wanted to try some new thing, bro. No, he always had that in him. He always was bisexual. Maybe he repressed it, but it was always there. And then eventually when he was high on crack, he fucking acted on it in real life. But this idea that somebody who's not bi or not gay, like, crazy, bro. Turns out I just sucked a dick, bro. That's not how it works. That's not how it fucking works. The only people that are going to suck dick are people who are interested in sucking dick, period. They're either gay or they're bi, period. There is no, I was straight, but then eventually I decided I'm a little bored, so give me your scrotum, bro. Like, no, that's not how it works. Oh my God. Just self-report central. How are other people not fucking noticing what we're watching here? Self-report central. Conservatives are so weird about sex, bro. They really are, you know? And the funny thing is they say that about liberals and lefties, like we're the weird ones about sex. I mean, and nothing could be further from the truth.
And there's something too about what it does when you look at it. Because people don't realize that it is a fundamentally different experience being involved in intercourse versus watching other people have intercourse. And I think that actually does something to you.
Tell me, what do you mean?
I think that, for example, I think Steve Saylor has written about this, that there's multiple kinds of transsexuals. And he says that one kind of transsexual is somebody that likes the...
I love the idea of conservatives being like, I'm fucking against trans people, bro. Trans people are terrible. So now I'm going to proceed to think about them and talk about them and write about them for fucking years on end. Like, just be honest with yourself. You're kind of into that. You want to have sex with a trans person. Instead, it's, I developed a theory about trans people that other people are thinking. Not me. Other people.
Idea of seeing themselves as a woman is autogynephilia.
Yes.
And I think that, one of the theories for that is you watch a man having sex with a woman that isn't you so much, you kind of achieve an identity with the woman in like a weird, sick way.
No, you don't. I can't with these people, bro. I can't. By the way, more on the self-report angle here, in May of 2024, Fuentes ended his stream and gay porn was playing. And his reaction to gay porn playing on his stream after he ended it was to blame the IDF. There's also the whole Catboy scandal. We don't need to get into that, but you can go look it up. But let's just say there's quite a bit of chatter when it comes to Fuentes and Catboys. So yeah, self-report after self-report is what I'm seeing here. All right, so now the hyper-fascism, the ultra-fascism comes out. Let's watch this part.
I'm deeply concerned about where that will go.
How would you handle it if you were in charge?
Talking about the ICE protests and all that stuff.
If you're the president, what do you do about that?
I think, maybe this is controversial, but they have to crush the other side. They have to, because you can do one of two things. You cannot challenge the left and let them do their thing. Or you can utterly confront them and defeat them and remove hope from the equation. If you resist, you will be arrested. Like, this is an insurrection. There's 10 million people here illegally. We're getting them out. You're rioting. You're going to jail too. Like, it has to be crushed. But if you do anything less than that, if you do in the middle, all you're doing is antagonizing and feeding the other side. And if they think there's a chance they can win, they will get bolder and stronger and they'll start to rally. And that's when it's sort of like people think it's close or like it's contentious. That's when it breathes. That's when oxygen is fed to this kind of fire. So if I were Trump, I would say screw 200 National Guard, like arrest the mayor of Chicago, like arrest the governor. Shut it down. Like, make it clear. Like Washington, bring in the troops and say the federal government is supreme. The immigration law is the law of the land. If you're not on board with that, you're going to jail. If you attack ICE or box them in with your car, you're going to jail for a long time. Anything less than that, you might as well just not even bark up that tree at all.
So yet again, just total commitment to destroying the Constitution and the First Amendment. I wish I was in the room so I could ask him, what about the fact that all of these anti-ICE protesters are completely peaceful? That they haven't done shit that breaks any law whatsoever. The people breaking the law are the ICE Gestapo thugs who are tear gassing people when they're doing nothing wrong. Fucking shooting pepper balls at the faces of priests, right? But what he's saying is, take no shit on it. Fucking arrest them all. So, okay, this is Nick Fuentes saying, I'm in favor of ending the Constitution, ending the First Amendment, ending free speech, ending freedom to protest, and having Trump go full fascist and lock up all of his political opponents and call it a day. That's what he's saying here. That's what he's saying here. So this is now what's in the realm of reasonable conversation on the right. Talking to the guy who literally said, I fucking admire Hitler, right? Talking to the guy who wants to live in the Middle Ages. That's another direct quote from him. We need to go back to the Middle Ages. This now is standard operating procedure. You're within the realm of reasonable conversation and now opened up, Nick, to a much bigger and broader audience, further radicalizing that audience. So I don't want to hear shit about how the left is the problem. I don't want to hear shit about how we're the extremists. In fact, there was just a poll that came out the other day. Way more Republicans are okay with political violence than Democrats are. It's a poll that just came out. It was double digits higher among Republicans. They said in some cases it was like 38% or something said political violence is okay in some circumstances. It was like 23% or something for Democrats. And then here we are mainstreaming a fucking white nationalist, mainstreaming somebody who's openly racist, mainstreaming somebody who's openly fascist. And then finally, I want to leave you with this one because I feel like this is so indicative of the interview and how much of a suck and fuckfest it was. So here is something that Fuentes threw in the middle of it. Watch this.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess. Like,
well, that's, okay, let's get back. We'll circle back to that.
It was weird because the reason I mentioned that, it was almost like, because I woke up that day and I was like, oh, it's December 18th. And I was just like very acutely aware of like, today's like a strange day.
They did not circle back to that. So Nick Fuentes was able to go on Tucker's show and basically railroad him, normalize himself. And even when he drops fucking, like if a lefty said that, there would be 1,000 hours of content bashing the person who said that on the left. On Fox News, on Tucker's show, on all the different right-wing shows. Nick Fuentes drops that. He goes, we'll circle back. He never fucking circled back. So this is what we're dealing with here. The fucking uber radicalization of the right in real time. And the people who are supposed to be the mainstream conservatives are totally and utterly ill-equipped to deal with this because low-key, secretly, they kind of agree with Nick and they're kind of as extreme as he is, right? This is vice signaling. Or the based ritual. It's a race to the bottom on the right, which is what they do day in and day out. They get worse by the day, and there's another great example of it here. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.